On Tech News Today, Detroit and Silicon Valley go to the mattresses over the data used in cars. Also, Amazon lets developers cast directly to the Fire TV, and we'll find out what scientists can do when they put their heads together. It's all coming up next on Tech News Today.
This is Twit. Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com.
This is Tech News Today for Friday, July 10th, 2015. This episode is brought to you by Gazelle, the fast and simple way to sell your used gadgets. Find out what your used iPhone, iPad, and other Apple products are worth at Gazelle.com. Tech News Today is the show where we talk about the tech news with the journalists who report it. Welcome to the show. My name is Mike Elgin, and our co-anchor today is Mashable senior tech correspondent Christina Warren, who joins us by phone. Welcome to you, Christina Warren.
Glad to be here by phone, Mike. Glad to be here.
You know, your face looks really familiar. You've been on OkCupid a lot lately. What's going on, Christina?
Yeah, so I got some weird Facebook message today with some screenshots from someone saying, so I saw you on OkCupid. This isn't your profile, is it? No, it's not. I'm married, happily so, and I've never been on OkCupid. But this is a weird situation where I've been catfished, or someone is catfishing someone else using my pictures, which is just bizarre and weird and creepy.
Yeah, it is weird. And catfish, I don't know if the reference comes from the movie Catfish or if that is from somewhere else, but basically it's where you create a fake persona and you interact online as a person that is not who you say you are and so on. And yeah, that's very, very weird, but it's kind of, you know, it's kind of... I don't know. I don't know what you think about it, but you're taking it very well.
Yeah, I mean, I have to laugh at it. I mean, some people are like, oh, take it as a compliment. I'm like, it's not really a compliment. I'm not really flattered. I'm really more creeped out. Like, don't steal my photos. But beyond that, I mean, it also just can create problematic things. I mean, like I said, I'm happily married. You know, I don't want someone to find these things and then assume that I'm like, you know, trying to get a little something on the side when that's like not the case at all. But yeah. I guess that's what happens in the world. It's weird when somebody's like, yeah, here are photos of you on this dating website you've never signed up for, pretending to be you. And I'm like, well, then, that's odd. Yeah, but okay.
Of course, anybody can just download anybody's profile picture and post it anywhere as anything. But I would recommend that if you ever encounter pictures or a profile or something that you suspect may not be the person who they say they are, just drag and drop that picture, download it to your system, or just drag and drop the URL to google.com/images. There's an image recognition service that Google has, if you haven't tried this, and it will show you all the places where that same picture exists on the internet. So a lot of times, you know, you see a picture and you think maybe it's a troll or whatever, and just by dragging the picture there and seeing that it's a stock photo or it's a picture from, you know, it's an executive from some company or something like that, then you know it's a fake profile and you can block them and move on. So anyway, pro tip right there. Why don't we jump into the news, Christina? A conflict is brewing between car makers on the one side and technology companies like Apple and Google on the other, according to a piece by Reuters' Julia Love and Paul Leinert. Apple, of course, makes the CarPlay dashboard system, and Google makes Android Auto. Specifically, the auto industry wants to prevent the tech industry from gaining too much access to too much data about drivers and what they're doing with their cars, and also data about the cars themselves. Julia Love is here to talk about it. She joins us by phone, and I welcome to you, Julia Love.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me today.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today. Now, what is the car maker's concern exactly? Are they looking out for the privacy of users, or do they want to grab the data and use it for themselves?
Well, I think the concern is twofold. Automakers do say that they want to make sure that users' privacy is protected and that their data is used as they intend. But certainly what seems to be top of mind for them is protecting a potential revenue stream. The connected car market is projected to grow substantially in the coming years. They see it as a huge area of growth for them, and they want to make sure that they hang on to as much of the money as possible. And for many companies, it seems to be part of a plan to expand their business from just making cars to delivering a wider range of mobility services.
So isn't this kind of similar to the battle between, carriers and some of these companies, because there is obviously, the data is going a lot of times through a phone or, through a mobile carrier, whether it's connected through a phone or through a built-in, 4G connection in the car itself back into the own system. So how is, I guess, this different fundamentally from, the battle between who owns the data, whether it's, the pipe, in this case, the carrier or the manufacturer?
It does seem to echo that battle, and I think that the automakers recognize that Apple and Google can already glean a lot of information just whenever someone brings their phone into the car. So it seems that the data that they are defending most strongly is data that comes from the vehicle itself, such as data about how the vehicle is performing, how fast the driver's going, how hard they're braking, and that's what they seem to be most reluctant to hand over.
Now, Julia, from a who controls the data perspective, of course, car makers like Ford, Volkswagen, and Audi create their own dashboard systems that would be used instead of one by Google and Apple, which gives them the opportunity to control all the data, do whatever they want with it, and so on. Is this going to shape up to be something that will determine how people buy cars? For example, do you envision a future in which people will go to Ford and say, I don't want the Ford system, I want the Apple system, or I want the Google system? Or do you think that consumers don't really care that much?
I think that this is a recognition by automakers that it is a factor for some consumers. Perhaps not all are wedded enough to iOS or Android to let that influence their purchasing decision. But I think car makers recognize that some users live through their smartphones and become so comfortable in those platforms that if there's a chance to extend that to the dashboard, they want that, and also that it might feel more natural to them than something that the automakers could come up with on their own. So that does seem to be a very key shift. And with that said, some companies such as Ford with its Sync 3 system are developing systems that actually have some overlap with Android Auto and CarPlay. They can do some similar things, and users can sort of toggle back and forth between the systems depending on how they feel most comfortable.
All right. Well, it was a great story. I enjoyed reading it. It was very informative, and I appreciate you guys writing it. Julia Love is at Reuters.com, of course, and you can find her on Twitter at @ByJuliaLove. Thank you so much for joining us today, Julia.
Thank you for having me. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
More news in a sec, but first let's talk about Gazelle. Gazelle will buy and sell your gadgets, and everybody knows Gazelle. They've been around for years as a great place to sell your device. I think those people who haven't taken the step to actually use Gazelle, to actually sell devices to Gazelle, may not know how ridiculously easy it is to use. You basically just go to the site, GAZELLE.com. You can sell or buy. That's your first choice when you get to the site. If you go into sell, you can choose an Android device or an iPhone, or you can choose even sort of a tablet or even an iPod. They'll buy your old iPod. And you just tell them what you got, what the condition is, and they'll send you a box. You put it in the box and you get paid. It is so easy. If you are like me and you're super, super lazy and want some money for that device that's sitting around, then Gazelle is a fantastic service. But they also will sell you a device, and they have a category of device called Certified Like New. What that means is that if you were to show anyone your Certified Like New device, they would think that it was brand new. It looks perfect, it works perfect, and it's significantly less expensive than a brand new phone. So it's everything that a brand new phone is, minus a big chunk of money. And so if you've got a budget for your phone, you can get a better phone at Gazelle. It's just a great place to buy a phone. It's a great place to sell a phone. So find out what your iPhone's worth. Take a minute and go to Gazelle.com to find out. And we thank Gazelle for their support of Tech News Today. Amazon announced today that an SDK that enables iOS and Android developers to cast their apps onto the Amazon Fire TV. It's called the Amazon Fling SDK. That's right. Instead of casting, you're flinging. Lauren Hawkinson is a reporter for the Next Web and joins us now. Welcome to you, Lauren.
Hi, Mike. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Now, congratulations on landing a job at NextWeb. Last time we talked to you, you were at GigaOM. So I want to congratulate you for that. You started this week, right?
Thank you. Yes, Monday. So I'm sort of making the journalism rounds, and I feel like making a stop at Tech News Today is really going to cap off that week.
Yes, excellent. Absolutely. So how is this SDK similar to or different from what Google offers for Chromecast?
Sure. So Amazon's Fling SDK is actually very similar if you are familiar with sort of the cord cutters toolkit. You know, you have things like the Apple TV, which allow you to essentially mirror everything right onto the screen if you have an Apple device. And for Chromecast, a lot of you can just cast. Two different things, very different things. You can actually cast apps through Chromecast, and you're able to have a second screen experience. Now, Amazon Fire TV has been a little bit different in that it's mainly been sort of landlocked to Kindle devices. You know, Kindle Fires and Kindle Fire phones were able to easily control. You were able to easily control apps from them. But if you were an iOS or an Android person, you really were regulated to just the controller and also certain limited supported apps. For example, Hulu, Netflix, things that actually come in with a specific standardized casting protocol that allow for easy flinging onto your Amazon device. So whether you're casting on your Google device or flinging onto your Amazon device, it's essentially the same app second screen experience that has really been a hallmark of cord cutting.
So Amazon introduced 2 apps to take advantage of this new Fling SDK. What are these like?
Sure. So the first one is called Karaoke Party, which is exactly how it sounds. You can have a karaoke party in your house. If you have an Amazon Fire TV, it will allow you to select songs from your phone and then broadcast them onto your TV, so you can have your own Taylor Swift sing-along in your house, Christina. And
yes,
also,
I'm doing it.
Exactly. And also they have an app called Rivet Radio, which allows listeners to transition between using their app on their phone to letting everyone in the room listen through the TV. It's a little bit less involved, less interactive from a second screen perspective, but it's essentially taking an app that was really limited just to the mobile phone and bringing it out to broadcast on TV.
Amazon is super tight-lipped about how many of its products they ship. Everything with a fire in the name. We just have no idea how many are selling. Do you have any anecdotal or other information about how many people are using the Fire TV? I personally don't know anybody who's got the Amazon Fire TV, unless Christina does. If she doesn't, I don't know anybody who's got it.
I know a lot of people who bought the Fire TV Stick, because when that came out last year for $29 for its kind of debut price, they that sold like gangbusters. So I know a lot of people have the Fire TV Stick, but I don't know about the box itself. I love my Fire TV. I like it a lot better than, I think Roku is the best overall ecosystem, but I love my Fire TV. I think it's significantly better than the Nexus player, and I now with this stuff, it becomes more and more like a Chromecast. So, but I'm with you. I don't know how many people actually have it. It doesn't have that brand recognition like the Kindle does.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the issue is the fact that the cord cutters market is suddenly getting incredibly flooded, specifically because you're starting to see more partnerships with places like HBO, Showtime. You're starting to get things like Sling TV that are able to be casted onto things like the Roku. And Amazon's really entering in a market that's kind of facing a big battle royale now. Trying to figure out who's really going to start dominating in this space. And they came in late. I mean, this app flinging is very necessary in order to grow the Amazon Fire TV, but it should be noted that it is late.
Very interesting. Lauren, what is your beat to the NextWeb? What can we expect from you now that you've gone through your first week?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am officially the San Francisco reporter for the NextWeb, which means that if you do something in San Francisco, or if you are talking with the city of San Francisco, or if you are getting sued by the city of San Francisco, I would love to talk to you about your technology, your apps, your gadgets, your whatnots, whatever you want to do. I'm totally interested in everything that has to do with San Francisco, and I hope that I can sort of tailor it to be more of a local beat as I move forward past this first week, which, Mike, I need a nap.
Does San Francisco have any sort of technology sector? Just kidding. So are you also going to cover like all the tests and trials and the service that uses an app to have people come to your house and take out the garbage and all that kind of stuff? Or are you more focused on government and all the city type stuff?
You know, I hope to sort of strike a balance between both. I mean, it's really funny. You did mention I can pretty much do anything in San Francisco with my smartphone. I'm pretty sure I could call someone to carry me from the current room in my house to another room in my house if I wanted to. But the fact is that San Francisco has become a really amazing breeding ground for new technology, and it's really become the model site for where technology companies look to start branching out into the world. If it works here, they're going to try and move it somewhere else. So I'm looking at the way that not only that people adopt technology in San Francisco, but also the way that the city of San Francisco is interacting with that technology.
Very interesting. Lauren Hawkinson is now at thenextweb.com. You can follow her you can follow her on Twitter at @LHawkinson. That's S-O-N at the end. Thank you so much for joining us today, Lauren.
Thank you, Mike. Have a great day. And you too, Christina. Google
has announced that its Gmail spam filtering has gotten so good now that it catches 99.9% of incoming spam. That's up from 99% 3 years ago. Better still is that the spam filter's false positive rate has dropped to 0.05%. Google says they've achieved all this with a new generation of artificial intelligence tools, neural networking and all that kind of stuff. Christina Warren, this is great news. I still see spam in my inbox, but they are getting awfully good. How is your experience if you use, in fact, Gmail?
Yeah, I do. And, I have to say, I don't see much of the traditional spam at all, the Viagra sort of stuff. Instead, the sort of spam that I get has become more of like the newsletter kind of variety and kind of the incessant messages from a service you sign up for once. And that's not really spam. That's just more like companies being overly judicious with the fact that they have your email address. So, I mean, I do still see occasional spam. For the most part, it's not there. And I think that Google has received so much credit for this. And I think that this is one of the advantages of having a system like Gmail where you're ingesting all these messages from all these different people and you're, looking through kind of the data for textual clues, is that they can create these great algorithms that can really defeat spam and really recognize the patterns before they happen and also figure out who what relays they're coming from and where that the spam is being sent from, because many times it's being sent from the same sorts of networks and the same types of, spam sellers, because even though it's obviously Google is doing a lot to solve the problem, spam is still a big business.
It certainly is. And for a while there, almost anything with Dr. Oz in it was getting through for some reason. And I think there's a lot of room to grow, because I'd love to be able to just have a button that says, okay, or some simple way other than creating a filter, which is kind of annoying, and I've got so many filters now. I think I have like 600 filters or something like that, and they start to conflict with each other, and I have problems. But basically, I'd love to say, okay, if it says Dr. Oz, I don't want it. Also, simple things like language. If it's in Russian, I don't speak Russian. Even if this is a mistake, I don't want Russian language email. It's like, and so on. Little simple things like that. We also have a false positive problem here, where a couple of times in the last couple of months, an email that we send, it's essentially an internal email that we send here at TWiT that's sent every single day by the same person. It's the same email with just updated information about upcoming shows. And every once in a while, Google says, oh, that's spam. It's like, we do it every day, 7 days a week. It's like, after a while, you should say, okay, you know what, this is fine. So there's still room for improvement, but it's great to see that they're finally getting so close to solving the spam problem altogether. So thank you, Google. Well, in product obituary news, Spain's only smartphone maker, Geeksphone, has confirmed that it's getting out of the business. The company started making Android phones, but later came out with Firefox OS devices and also a phone where people could switch between the two operating systems. The company also formed an alliance last year, or a year and a half ago, I guess, with Silent Circle to build a secure phone called the Black Phone. Reported on that multiple times on this show. Silent Circle later bought the rights and staff associated with the Black Phone, and they were left with nothing but the other phones, and apparently wasn't selling that well, so they're out of the business. So Spain no longer makes smartphones. There you go. What are you going to do? Well, in the research and development department, MIT researchers have created a system that updates, fixes, and fine-tunes software code without needing a programmer or even the original source. It's called Helium, and its creators claim that it maintains code better than a human programmer can. Christina Warren, I pored over this article, and the way that this goes about doing this was very complicated. Those MIT geniuses are really smart, and basically, can you explain better than I can exactly how this works?
I will do my best. We were talking about this before the show, and this is complicated, but it's so cool. So the basic idea is that a lot of computer programs, especially really old programs that have been around for a long time, end up getting what's kind of called bit rot and bit rot. And over the years, these huge code bases they use in the article, an example being Photoshop. Photoshop is 25 years old, and it's got this humongous kind of monolithic code base. And obviously parts of the system have been rewritten over time, but the whole thing hasn't been rewritten, from the ground up in a long, long time. And over the years, what happens is that, Adobe has to pay engineers all kinds of money to go through and basically optimize the old code to make sure that those bits aren't decaying to a certain degree and slowing things down. And that can be a really tedious process and obviously costs a lot of money. And so what Helium does, and it's something that the CSAIL school at MIT has created, is it's basically a programming language that's geared towards image processing. And they basically go from the binary to high-level languages. Basically, they learn how the coding process works so that it can start to optimize the code without even needing access to the source itself. So it's kind of like defragmenting your code, I guess, if that's an oversimplification, but that's kind of what it's doing. And it can do it significantly faster. In one test, they said that, it improved the performance of certain Photoshop filters by 75%, and the performance of less optimized programs such as Windows Earth View by 400 to 500%. So it can really make a difference in how quickly programs run. And the best part is that it's optimizing it without having to have, a programmer waste their time playing around with the old bits. Instead, they can be writing new bits going forward.
This is especially useful for enterprises that create their own systems. And then what typically happens is that, big companies will create all kinds of software, and they become core to how the company functions. And they're so good, they're written so well that nobody ever thinks about it. And then the one person who wrote it or who knows how it works retires. And then later on, there's a problem with some new operating system or something, and they want to do something with it, and they can't find anybody who knows anything about this application. And it would be great if they could productize this and develop this for enterprises to just throw this at all the legacy software that they've got running and just keep it maintained and optimized and functioning. Yeah, I think there would be a great service if they can pull it off.
No, definitely. I mean, because when you think about it, with optimizing, it's not just optimizing, for things that happen, as maybe the bit rot that happens over time, but as new architectures are developed and new systems come out, you don't want to have the code have to run in kind of a legacy mode, where the processor is, maybe running like it's something else. If it can be optimized for what the current technology is and run efficiently, you can get tremendous benefits. So that like as you said, if you're an enterprise and you built a system in the 80s or sometimes even the 70s or 60s, and it's been piecemealed, upgraded over time, there's likelihood that you're massively inefficient because some of the core of that structure might be 20 or 30 years old, and being able to go through and optimize that so that it can run on more modern hardware and then be more portable too. Could be great. So I'm with you. I think this has the potential to be a humongous advancement and great for kind of these kind of legacy sorts of systems that are really essential to kind of infrastructure and so many things that people do day to day, and especially so many big businesses rely on. I know we're all kind of in a cloud-centric world now, but it's important to remember how many kind of legacy and older systems and monolithic code bases still exist and are still really important to the fundamental aspects of computing.
Absolutely. The downside, of course, is that when Skynet goes online and the machines come after us, they're going to be able to optimize the software behind the killer robots. Yeah.
Yeah, they'll be able to peel themselves and make themselves better. That is the downside, of course. But we all knew this would happen, and I think that I don't know. I for one welcome a robot overlord.
Yeah, me too, and I'm sure Arnold will save us from all of that anyway. So, well,
exactly, he will.
Our question of the day: a new Apple commercial for the iPhone pitches the product by saying, "If it's not an iPhone, it's not an iPhone." Now, that's true. But TechCrunch's Matt Burns called it pompous, but effective. Let's take a look at the ad.
This is an iPhone. And unlike most smartphones, we design the hardware part and the software part. So the hardware part makes the most of the software part, and the software part makes the most of the hardware part.
This is very technical.
Yep. When you design the whole phone, all the parts work together as one amazing part.
Usually.
If it's not an iPhone, it's not an iPhone.
Christina Warren, somebody commented, I don't recall who it was today on Twitter, that Apple has forgotten how to sell iPhones. Is this a weird ad for Apple to be producing?
It's a little weird, but it's also not wrong. I mean, maybe they've forgotten how to sell iPhones, but at the same time, the iPhone is selling better than ever, and it's selling better than ever. The iPhone 6 and the 6 Plus have been an enormous success. They have really kind of killed the high-end Android market to a certain extent. I mean, maybe killed is overstating things, but they've certainly put it under significant pressure. Most I think of Android's growth is coming on the lower end now, and that was not the case even a couple of years ago. So I think on the one hand, they've maybe forgotten how to sell it, but I also feel like it's not wrong when it's saying if it's not an iPhone, it's not an iPhone. I think what would be pompous is if they said, if it's not an iPhone, it's not a phone. That would be pompous. Yeah. But, I mean, they're not wrong. If it's not an iPhone, it's not an iPhone. Everybody else is, you can, and look, that can be better for if you're an Android fan, that maybe is an advantage. You're saying, I don't want an iPhone. I want something else. But if you're someone but I think their core message is if you want the best phone or if you want kind of the quintessential ideal of a phone, it's still the aspirational signal out there and nothing else compares. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a problem. I don't have a problem with it.
Okay. Well, let us know if you have a problem with it out there. Let me know if this is pompous.
Yes,
if this is a pompous ad, send an email to tnt@twit.tv and let us know. I can imagine Samsung or some other, probably Xiaomi will come out with an ad that says, if it's not an iPhone, it's not expensive. Or something like that. Well,
that would actually be a perfect response. Actually, I think somebody should do that. That would be really good.
It absolutely would. Well, in the Human Resources Department, Catherine Archuleta, the director of the Office of Personnel Management for the U.S. government, has resigned. This comes one day. Yeah, this comes one day after it was revealed that the department had been hacked and the personal information of more than 25 million people was stolen, including her information. Beth Colbert, the deputy director of the management of the Office of Management and Budget, will serve as the interim director until they find a permanent replacement. Christina Warren, you say that this is this should have happened before?
Absolutely. I mean, there's been kind of a series of kind of, leaks and kind of disasters. And I think this is just the latest black eye where you're going, sorry. I mean, I don't care who you are. If something like this happens under your watch, especially if your information is amongst it, I mean, that I don't think matters more than just being the overlying like embarrassment icing on the cake. How can you stay in your position?
Yeah, well, actually, I think that's a big problem in Washington is that I think whether you leave or not depends on politics more than anything else. I mean, it's like so many heads of departments within the government who have been hacked because of failures in their IT infrastructure and security don't leave. They don't even apologize. They just say, oh, those evil Chinese or whatever, whoever's hacking. And,
right.
And so she just didn't have the cred within Washington to stick around. But if she had more juice, or if she was like potentially somebody's, if she was going to be, revolving dooring her way into the industry or into Congress, or if she was, up for the next, nomination for vice president or something like that, there's no way she would have left. But she just doesn't have the political connections to stick around.
That's a great point, and I think that's problematic. Because I can't understand in any other industry. I mean, obviously there's politics and levels of bureaucracy and private business too, but you have to think about it in an industry. I think maybe the only example of like where you wouldn't see somebody at the top resigning over something like this would be. This reminds me a couple of weeks ago when we had Peter Elkind on talking about the Sony hack. How the guy that's still Michael Lynton is still the CEO of Sony Pictures. That I don't understand. But short of something like that happening, in almost all these cases, the Target CEO resigns. When these sorts of security breaches happen on your watch, especially when your job is under the Office of Personnel Management. I mean, sorry, you're gonna have to leave, because clearly the buck has to stop with you. We can blame other people for it, but ultimately your name is the one that's at the top.
Yeah, absolutely true. Well, I'd love to see a lot more of this going around Washington. Well, we got a couple of big numbers for you. They're actually very similar numbers. The first one is 11.8. That's a percentage drop in PC sales for the second quarter of this year from the same quarter of last year. That's a huge drop. And this number, of course, is according to IDC. Note that the Gartner came out with a less alarming drop of 9.5%, but that's only because they're counting high-end tablets as PCs. Christina Warren, is it over for PCs?
It's not over for them, but they're definitely hurting. I mean, it's kind of become to that place where you're completely commoditized on the low end, and there's very little differentiation in the market. You've got high, quality a lot of times, but it's almost completely commoditized product. And then you've got the high end. Basically, you have one manufacturer who's selling the majority of that business, the over $1,000 stuff, and that's Apple. I mean, obviously other companies sell in that space too, but I think Apple has the majority of that market share. And increasingly, our phones are the center of our digital lives. I mean, and even the fact that the high-end tablets, counting that as PCs, only accounted for about a 2% difference, shows that even the tablet space, where so many people predicted that tablets would overtake PCs, that hasn't come into fruition either. Because if it had, then that drop still wouldn't be as big as it is. It would have amounted for more of those sales. So, yeah, I don't think it's over for PCs, but it's certainly very increasingly true that we are a phone future. The phone is the future.
That's exactly right. I mean, PCs are declining. Everybody's disappointed in tablet sales. The Apple Watch isn't selling as well as they thought, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But nobody is saying that smartphones aren't selling well, that people are gobbling them up. The bigger the screens, the better. And so, yeah, you are absolutely dead on with that. This is a smartphone world and will continue into the foreseeable future. Well, our other big number today is 11. That's the percentage of American smartphone owners who check their phones every few minutes, according to a new Gallup survey. Some 41% check it a few times an hour, and only 28% of Americans check their phones less than once an hour. We are obsessed with our smartphones. We can't stop looking at these things.
No, I mean, did you see the story yesterday with Patti LuPone on Broadway, where she snatched a phone out of a texter's hands at the end of the second act of her play? I mean, it's ridiculous. You go to a show, you spend a lot of money, you're in the front row, and you're texting. I think there's something to be said about as we were just talking about, is the smartphone world, and they are the center of our lives. For good or for ill, we can't stop putting them down. I know I'm very guilty of that. And when I, go to certain things and certain events, the movies being one of them, shows being another, having that phone put away even for a couple of hours is often, you start to get the jitters a little bit. It's like, I've never been a smoker, but it's what I would imagine it's kind of the same sort of thing where you kind of have, I feel my fingers twitching and I'm going, have I swiped? Can I swipe yet? Can I look at the screen? Can I touch some icons? It's a problem.
Sometimes smokers, when they're trying to quit, they start putting lollipops in their mouth to sort of break the habit. Christina, maybe you could start smoking to break your smartphone habit. So, something to think about. But
that is something to think about. No, I don't think I don't think that would be good. I think that would cost more than my Candy Crush addiction, to be honest. I think that'd be more expensive.
Yeah. There is a changing social norm, and I think it's starting with meetings. I was listening to a podcast recently. It might have been Rocket. No, I don't think it was Rocket. Anyway, there's one of the podcasts that I listened to had this big conversation about the changing norms in business meetings, where the question is it okay to sit there on your phone while people are talking in a meeting? And until very recently, the answer was no. That is wrong and bad. And nowadays, it's like, hey, this is like kind of part of my brain. I'm like, I'm doing things. I'm taking notes. I'm doing, I need to interact with this phone in order to function as a human being. And if somebody asks me a question directly, I will look up from my phone and answer the question, and then go right back to the phone. But this is the beginning of a social norm where it's okay to sit in the front row of a Patti LuPone concert or whatever and use your phone.
Right. No, I mean, and I'm definitely guilty of being one of those people who has been rude at meetings for years and been on my phone. But for me, it's one of those things. I'm ADD, and I'm a high functioning ADD person, and I've always been like this. I mean, when I had a graphing calculator in high school, I would get in trouble for playing Tetris during English class, and then she would ask me questions. The teacher would ask me questions to try to stump me, and I would answer, correctly and make her very, very angry. But for me, my brain has to focus on two things at the same time. I'm much more functional that way. If I'm doing something mindless like playing a game, literally I can focus more on what's happening around me. But I acknowledge the social rudeness of it all. But now, as you said, yeah, it has become almost commonplace where everybody is on their phones, whether you're taking notes or finding a way to focus in another way or multitasking. It's just become the norm. And it's interesting how that is, but there are still certain spaces I think we all agree where it's like, no, funerals, the movies, hopefully, Broadway shows with Patti LuPone. Anytime a Tony winner is nearby, maybe don't put the phone up while they're performing. Save it for a selfie afterwards. There's still these scenarios where it's not acceptable, but those places are becoming fewer and farther between because as we're discussing, I mean, this has become the center of our lives.
Yeah, there is a sweet, sweet coffee joint in San Francisco, which I won't mention both because I don't want to make them sound bad, and also I don't remember the name of the place. But they have fantastic bread and pastries, incredible coffee. It's a great environment, and they have no Wi-Fi. And if you ask them if they have Wi-Fi, they kind of give you a dirty look and like, no, we don't have Wi-Fi here. And it's like a tech-free, like hipster area. And I have mixed feelings about that. On the one hand, as a nomad, I like to work in places like that, and on the other hand, I respect their right to have a sort of a tech-free zone, I guess. But they don't have to provide Wi-Fi. Why should they have to? But totally. with the iOS 9 multitasking coming, Christina, you're going to have to learn to function by paying attention to three things at once, because you'll have two things on your screen, and then somebody's going to be talking.
And and I've been playing with that with the latest public beta of iOS 9. I have to say it works really well. At least on the iPad. So we'll see. But that is finally making, it's weird. We were talking about the declining PC sales and the fact that tablets haven't really caught up. It's funny that type of thing might just be enough to kind of make the tablet actually start to really eat into PC sales. I think until now it's really been phones that have been eating into them, but the tablet might. I don't think it's going to increase tablet sales necessarily, but people might be migrating even further from PC purchases to tablet purchases for that reason. Just a tangential thought. Clearly, I'm still ADD.
To continue that tangent, do you believe in the iPad Pro? Do you think Apple's going to come out with a nearly 13-inch tablet?
You know what? I didn't think that was going to happen. I was really firmly on the camp I'm not going to do that. But since seeing the multitasking, when I saw that at WWDC, I turned to Lance Ulanoff, our chief correspondent, who was there with me, and I was like, okay, fine, you're right, because he's been very much like, oh, they're definitely going to do this. And I've been like, no, they're definitely not going to do this. I think he's right. I think that looking at the way that multitasking works, it really kind of screams for a bigger screen. Yeah. And that sort of experience, I think that was the thing that said to me, okay, maybe they will actually do this, and maybe this will be the beginning of kind of that hybridification, something the Surface has been doing for quite some time and quite successfully, but that Apple will be doing in their own Apple way.
Yeah, and Apple's also
not an iPhone, it's not an iPhone.
Yeah, if it's not an iPhone, it might be an iPad. I mean, it might be. Anyway, so
right.
there's Apple's also in the news recently for having some patents around pen input. So they, of course, Steve Jobs dissed the pen when he announced the iPhone, but of course it's coming, and Microsoft and Google and everybody else is working on pen input. I think the future is going to be large screens, flat screens, virtual keyboards, pen input, voice input, gesture, in-the-air gestures, and all of the above. And so
it's Minority Report. It's Minority Report. It's just not. It's going to be 2025 instead of 2050. But it's Minority Report, but like with even better graphics.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in news you can lose, speaking of horrible dystopian futures, researchers have wired together the brains of several animals to create a living computer. The work was published yesterday and was conducted by researchers at Duke University. In one experiment, they wired together the brains of 3 monkeys to to move an animated screen image that represented a robot arm. That's not accurate exactly. Each monkey was connected directly to the computer and had control of just one dimension. So one monkey was in charge of going up and down, one was back and forth, and the other was forward and back. But they were able to synchronize their thoughts to move the arm with some degree of control. In another, a more disturbing experiment, the scientists connected the brains of 4 rats to a computer and also to each other. In this case, they directly wired the rats' brains and also to the computer. And they used a reward system to train the rats to synchronize their brain activity. So, Christina Warren, this is gross, cruel, and horrible, but fascinating at the same time when you think about how the brain works.
No, it's completely fascinating. I mean, like you said, gross, cruel, horrible, but also completely fascinating because, this is so fascinating. I mean, you always wonder, like, okay, in what country are the laws going to be such that they're terrible enough that, people start wanting to, try this stuff out on humans to kind of see how the human brain will react to this sort of thing. But it's fascinating experiment.
Yeah, and this experiment was conducted by the same people who figured out how to get a monkey to control an actual robot arm just by thinking and thinking of it as their actual arm. So really interesting research going on there, although a little queasiness inducing, I guess. Well, our TNT fan of the day is Kyle Coe, who posted this picture on Twitter. He's watching Tech News Today while visiting onsen, which is a hot spring water called Sea Hell in Beppu, Japan. Very cool. See, there's nothing to see there, so he's just watching the show. It actually looks like a really cool place. I wonder if that's the place where the monkeys like sit around in the snow and warm themselves up.
And I was going to say, can you think, make the water hotter? Can use your mind for that? I don't know.
I think you probably can. I will send him back and he can report back to us. Well, how do you watch or listen to TNT? Just record a video or take a picture of yourself or your setup or Japanese tourist spot. There we go. There's a monkey right there. Very nice. He looks like he's wearing one of those, like, Russian hats or whatever. So take the picture or video and post it on Instagram, Google+, Twitter, or Facebook, and use the hashtag HowIWatchTNT so we can find it. Christina Warren, what are you working on these days besides listening to Taylor Swift and commenting on Twitter?
Well, yeah, that's basically it. Trying not to get in any more Twitter fights. If anybody saw that drama yesterday, I won't recount it. But anyway, trying not to do more of that. Doing a lot of iOS 9 stuff. Now that the first public beta is out, kind of going hands-on with the news app. I've got a big story on that coming later today with lots of GIFs and kind of my first thoughts. And, and so that's kind of what I'm working on right now. And then, really the highlight of my whole life is going to be tomorrow when I see Taylor Swift in concert. So.
That's awesome. But can you give us a little glimpse of what your overall impression of the Apple News app is? Thumbs up, thumbs down?
Yeah. Thumbs up, but with caveats. I mean, right now it's not demonstrably different from Flipboard or Pulse or any of the other kind of services, but it's super fast. Is the one thing I would say. The load time is kind of incredible. And so that's really fascinating. And for the publishers that have optimized for that news format, and who knows how many of them will continue to do it, they've done some amazing things. There's this Grub Street article about, the best hamburger I ever ate, which kind of goes through kind of the history of kind of the, high-end hamburger trend that's taken over New York over the last decade or so. It's got beautiful photography and some really interesting, kind of video stuff kind of inserted in the middle, and just really great layout tools that make the reading experience really phenomenal, but it's super, super fast. And so I like it. But again, I don't know how demonstrably different it is from any of the other mini news services we've seen over the years, other than the fact that it's built in.
I see. All right. Well, I look forward to seeing that. And of course, San Francisco's had a huge resurgence in the high-end hamburger market. And if you're ever in town, you got to go to a place called Rome. Really great.
Okay,
really great burgers. Really fantastic. Well, Christina Warren, thank you so much. Enjoy the Taylor Swift concert, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week, Mike.
All right, take care. You can subscribe to Tech News Today at twit.tv/TNT. And if you're ever in the San Francisco Bay Area, come on in and watch us as part of our studio audience. Just send email to tickets@twit.tv before you come in. You can also subscribe to our subreddit at technewstoday.reddit.com, and you can follow me on all the social networks at elgin.com. Don't miss our other news show, Tech News Tonight, at 4 p.m. Pacific every single weeknight. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the Tech News Today. This show was produced by Jason Cleanthes and edited by Zachary Smith. My name is Mike Elgin. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you Monday.